Hi, and welcome to Cover Brand, where we cover all things branding, marketing, and advertising to help you understand what the hell branding is and how it works to grow your business. Welcome and welcome back to Cover Brand, where we cover all things branding, marketing, advertising, shoppers, consumers, all of that kind of stuff. I'm Ethan Decker. Today, I've got with me Peggy McCartha. Peggy, good to see you.
Good to see you, and thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Oh, this will be fun. I know you well, but other people don't know you. How do you want to introduce yourself to them? What do you want them to know about you?
I am a certified professional photographer. I've done the same thing for over 36 years. About 5 years ago, I started training creative business people how to run a business because I found that it wasn't just me. A lot of creatives like to focus on our skills and our talents and not on the business side of things. And that led me to creating a platform called the Global Business Plaza. It's a virtual plaza where businesses come together and are able to be seen globally. That's actually a good lead into the question I had for you, Ethan.
Bring it on. What do you have?
I have a lot of businesses that intersect and
Mhm.
introducing, like, I was a photographer for 36 years. I knew exactly what I did. I knew exactly who my target audience was. I knew exactly how to communicate all of that. Now I have these three other businesses that all really intersect, and I still have the credibility, as a photographer.
Right.
But, so I some like, how do I introduce myself and who am I and how do I brand all of that?
This is not uncommon, which is great that you're bringing it up because other people have the same problem, just like you said, or same sitch. Sometimes it's a problem. Sometimes it's just the sitch, which is you have multiple products or multiple offerings, or maybe even multiple brands.
Mhm.
And there are two elements. One is, of course, for each one, you want to know what you're doing and you want it to be tight and you want it to be clear, the connection between who's your audience, what are you offering, how are you communicating it to them, and how are you reaching them,
Mhm.
right? So you've got that dialed for the photography piece, correct?
Right.
You know who your audience is, you know what they want and what makes them tick, you know how to reach them, you know how to express to them what you offer, and you offer a really good thing. That's a tight business. That's a good business. For most people, even that step is hard for one business. And so kudos to you for getting that part right. The second part is what we start to call brand architecture, which is when you've got more than one piece in the puzzle. And a brand architecture has two really broad ends of a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you've got what's called a branded house. A great example for this is Kirkland. You can buy Kirkland motor oil. You can buy Kirkland olive oil. Who the hell would buy their motor oil from the same company that sells them olive oil? But yet we do, right? Because we know Kirkland. So a branded house is when all of the pieces are branded the same thing. So what's the name of your photography company?
Headshots by Peggy.
Headshots by Peggy. A branded house version would be all of your offerings still come under the Headshots by Peggy brand. And then you'd have to figure out what is the actual specific way you offer something new. What's a second offering? What's a second product or service you're
Mhm.
doing?
The Headshots by Peggy is the thing that I have the most credibility in. I've done that forever.
Sure.
But I think the 3 businesses that kind of intersect would be under the Quintesphere name, because that's my online room building, helping people set up things. And under that, TimeBenders is the community that I teach creative business people. And then the Global Business Plaza is a platform that can help businesses grow with networking and visibility. But I think even though they all intersect, I guess probably as you're talking, I would say Quintesphere would be the umbrella to that.
Okay, so we've got Headshots by Peggy, Quintesphere, TimeBenders, and Global Business Plaza.
Uh-huh.
What you've just described is the not Kirkland way to do it.
Right.
It's called the House of Brands. And it's simple phrases, so they're easy to remember. The branded house is like Kirkland, or another good example usually is Trader Joe's. You go there, everything's Trader Joe's brand.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that you might see a little bit more spread out is something like Annie's mac and cheese, Annie's pasta, Annie's pizzas, or Newman's Own.
Mm-hmm.
Newman's Own brand is spread out between the salad dressings and the sauces and salsa. And Newman's Own is found in lots of different aisles of the store. What you've just described with TimeBenders, Global Business Plaza, Headshots by Peggy, and
Quintesphere.
Quintesphere is the house of brands, where the company owns different brands, but each brand has a very distinct identity, logo, name, all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
The classic examples, houses of brands, are most of the products at the grocery store. For instance, that's a good example, Procter & Gamble. They own Bounty paper towels, Charmin toilet paper, Dawn dish soap, Ivory soap, Head and Shoulders shampoo. I could go on and on. I think you might know some of these connections.
Right.
But a lot of people don't know that Bounty and Charmin are owned by the same company, Procter & Gamble. Or Swiffer and Febreze are owned by Procter & Gamble. And so Procter & Gamble, P&G, manages a house of different brands. And that's actually the more common strategy. There are pros and cons of each, but it's a more common strategy because it's often pretty hard for someone who buys dish soap to make the connection that whoever makes your dish soap is also going to be good at making your paper towels.
Right.
Now, again, Kirkland, well, whatever Home Depot's house brand is, I forget what it is, but store brands are the usual exception where you can have an entire branded house. But again, Newman's Own, it's hard to stretch. If Newman's Own started making, by the way, do you know Newman's Own? Have you
I
seen
do.
it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah. Paul Newman, 100% to charity, which most people forget, even though it's written on every single panel of every single product. It's a lesson for a different time. Newman's Own would have a hard time selling soda because you've got so many other brand options, and it starts to really stretch what the brand can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a bit of a challenge with a branded house. Is Coca-Cola knows that it would start to create a bit too much confusion if they sold Coca-Cola orange juice and Coca-Cola coffee and then Coca-Cola ice cream, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And even just the quick grab and go of Coca-Cola versus, could you imagine if Coca-Cola made like a clear lemon lime type beverage or a sparkling iced tea? If Coca-Cola made a sparkling iced tea, every time you reached for a Coke, you'd have to check which damn Coke you're getting. It's annoying to the shopper as well as it's a challenge to the brand, which is why the house of brands, where they're distinct, is often a pretty easy strategy. So Coca-Cola owns Dasani, Coca-Cola owns, I don't know which iced tea they own, but they own an iced tea. It's its own
Mm-hmm.
brand.
Yeah.
When the people are quite different, when the product is quite different, when you don't have it all in your own store, that's when a house of brands does make sense. But you've hit the other challenge, which is now you're managing 4 brands. You've got to grow 4 brands. You've got to create 4 brands. You've got to get people to think of all 4 brands at the right moment. And it's a lot of extra work. It would be really nice if you could just have Peggy's John. It's a Philly slang. Peggy's John. And Peggy's John had all these different products, but people might not know what Peggy's John is. And I guess that's the advantage when you do have your own grocery store like Trader Joe's or Costco. When people walk into a Trader Joe's, they know basically the range of stuff that they're going to be able to shop for. And now at Costco, you know, basically you can shop for anything. But if it's Costco, it's going to be okay because it's got their patina on it. You don't have that. So it's a challenge to have 4 different brands, right? The big question there, aside from running your own entire grocery store or club, which I don't think you're going to do, is how much overlap is there between the customers?
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you, how much overlap is there between the customers for what you offer?
Setting Headshots by Peggy aside, the other three, there's quite a bit of overlap. And I think that's what gets confusing, because introducing myself, it's like, well, these are, there's a lot of overlap here. So, I want people to know that all of these services exist. Maybe it's time for me to rethink how I'm branding this whole thing and how things do fit together.
Yeah. As you know, building a brand is hard. Building two brands is twice as hard. And maybe it's like kids, it's actually 10 times as hard. I don't know. And then having three makes it could just compounds it. If there's a lot of overlap between those audiences for your other three businesses, it might make a lot of sense to combine them into one brand and then treat the three things as different products.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that lots of companies struggle with, big and small. Here's a great example. Gillette. You've heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
Little razor brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's Gillette. Do you know about some of the Gillette stuff, Gillette products?
Yes.
What are some of the ones you've heard of?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I am not a put on the spot person.
Okay, fine. How about Venus? Do you know Venus?
Uh-huh.
Better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are there different Venus things or products? You don't know?
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, you get extra points for being yourself. Let's go back to Gillette. I know it a little better.
Okay.
I did some work with Gillette, but they have the Gillette Sensor, which is their two-blade razor.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Gillette Mach 3, which was their three-blade product.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came out with Gillette Fusion, and Fusion is their 5-blade. Now, here's the thing that gets confusing. Is Fusion a different brand, or is it just Gillette's product that's their 5-blade razor? And then there's variants of that. There's the Fusion Pro Glide. There's the Fusion Flex Ball. There's the Fusion Pro Glide Flex Ball. Gillette makes it really easy. But the challenge, again, is it a product or is it a brand? And I think especially if you're small, it behooves you to try and have one brand and then have specific products underneath if it's talking to one type of person or one consumer or one customer. Then that one customer comes in to buy the brand. You want that brand to be a wide enough umbrella. And then within that, you can say we offer different services or products. For instance, if you were going to your bank and your bank had a different brand for the credit card than for the checking account, that would be kind of a pain in the butt. So it makes a lot of sense to just have one big umbrella brand as best you can, because brands are hard to build and nurture and create. And then within that, if there's enough overlap, you want to create products, or another way I like to call it is an offering, because it might be a service, it might be a product, it might be a combo, different offerings that might have names to them, but don't treat them like separate brands. Does that make sense?
That makes a really good sense. That does. That's very helpful.
Great. And what we've just gone through is a fundamental thing a lot of companies struggle with, which is the difference between having a branded house where everything falls under one name and a house of brands where they're all different and distinct. And the real breaking point tends to be, are we talking to the same people, or is it going to create confusion for our customers? Because if you're talking to very different people, you still could do that even if it's the very same need. Coca-Cola serves the military, as well as serving individual college kids or high school kids who are thirsty. The military and a college kid seem very different, but their need is the same. So you can have the same brand as Coca-Cola. But when it comes to confusion, or when it comes to helping people have a handle of what you're doing, you want to keep it simple. And that's where building out what that second brand you have is a challenge still. You want something broad enough to be an umbrella for all three of these offerings, but you want it to be clear enough that people can get kind of right away what I'm getting when I'm connecting with this brand.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually very helpful, because that's what I've been really struggling with, because those three, there's so much overlap in the people that would use these services, that but one was started, then another, and as it's building, then you're like, oh wait, why did I build three separate things? I didn't realize this was going to all be the same.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, part of growth and pivoting and learning.
Well,
This is
thanks for
very
bringing
helpful.
that
Thank
question.
you.
That was a fantastic question. I know a lot of people struggle with that, especially when you've got multiple ideas and multiple businesses you're starting. It was perfect. It was a perfect question to launch into this topic of brand architecture.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you want to learn more about brand science, head on over to appliedbrandscience.com. Also, if you got something out of this episode, think of one person who might also get something out of it and send it to them as a way of saying, hey, thinking of you.